There we are.
There he is. Sorry,
There.
sometimes there's a lag between when, because you have to be an observed viewer to be added. So sorry, there was a little bit of delay there, so I apologize.
Okay, we're here. Can you hear me okay?
Uh, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. Are you
All
going to
right.
like on your uh, live streams?
I think everybody's had enough of my singing for a while until the shows restart. So I'll save my singing for later.
Okay.
Good to see you again. I just saw you a couple weeks ago at the on your tour, which for anybody that hasn't ever gone, I would highly suggest you go to Stan's tour, do Stan's tour. It was really good, even though I know quite a bit. There was a lot of stuff that he knew that I didn't know, and seeing some of the place I'd been to some of the places, but not all of them. So Stan, and who's your partner's name again? Is
Gene Mickle,
Gene
Mickle.
Gene
Yeah.
Mickle. I kept wanting to say Gene Carroll, but Gene Mickle. Um, so talking to Stan Goldstein here. He's a resident expert on all things Bruce and has been for many years. Um, and he does a tour. We did a tour of Asbury and Freehold and some of the other sites a couple weeks ago during the Labor Day shows. Very excellent. There's a group of about, I don't know, 35 people on a coach bus.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, you do private tours for those that are interested, correct?
Yeah. Usually on weekends because I work a normal job during the week, but usually on weekends I'm available for private tours. They can be up to 1 to 4 people, and been doing them for 23 years now. So still have a lot of demand, and I still enjoy doing them. I mean, I make money out of them, but I love showing people around, so it's
Yeah.
fun. Should we mention
Uh,
we're delayed coming to our tour because you were stopped at the John Bon Jovi service area for a while?
oh my God. We tried to drive down from Newark and we had to be there at whatever 9:45, 10:45, and we stopped to get some coffee and whatever, and oh my God, it took forever. So yeah, that was not pleasant. And me and my troop put some other people behind the 8 ball, so I still apologize for that.
No, you made it. You made it. The interesting part is the service area down here by the Jersey Shore. They wanted to name the Bruce Springsteen service area, and he declined it. So it's now the Judy Blume service area after the author. But I
Right.
think it would have been cool to have the Bruce Springsteen service area.
Absolutely. I was impressed. Like, I mean, I know it's kind of whatever, it's a service area, but we walked in there and like they had a lot of nice artwork and
Yeah.
displays, and they had columns, from Max and, a bunch of Stevie and a bunch of other people, but it was very well done.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, so we got some viewers, there's many questions from time to time. Carol wants to know, what is your normal day job? If
I'm
you
almost
care to,
afraid. I'm almost afraid to admit it. I'll start with this. I worked in newspapers for years, and as most of you know, the newspaper business is been in a decline. So 5 years ago this month, it's coming up on my anniversary. I got laid off after 19 years of working for the North Star Ledger, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, if I want what I could do. And in my area, there were jobs working for magazines, trade publications that cover the funeral service industry. So I work for American Funeral Director magazine and American Cremation and Cemetery magazine. And it's not as creepy as it sounds. It's a business, a lot of great people. A lot of us have visited great cemeteries. And I was in Las Vegas last week for 4 days for the National Funeral Directors Association convention. So been able to,
well, that's
and it's different. It's different, but I enjoy it.
this is a very small world because I have an uncle who owned a series of funeral homes in the southern central Illinois, Decatur area. And my aunt actually worked for the American Funeral Directors Association as she coordinated all the, like exactly what you did last week, but they went all over the world. Like they were in Bangkok, Thailand,
Yeah.
Africa. Like they'd go every year, they'd go on a huge trip. So she actually was in charge of doing that for 40 years here out of Springfield in Illinois. So yeah, it's not as creepy as you people hear it, and you think weird things, but there's a whole industry behind it and
I was
a lot of good people.
able to write an article with a Bruce connection. When Bruce played Orlando back in, I guess that was February toward the beginning of the tour this year. Some guy gave him a margarita when he came back during 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and he drank the margarita. And it turned out the guy who gave him the margarita was a funeral director from Massachusetts. So I wrote an article sharing a margarita with Bruce Springsteen. So I was able to get a Springsteen article in an American Funeral Director magazine. So,
Is that something that people can view online,
yeah,
or is it only in the print
it
edition?
is online. It's Kate's Boylston, Kates-Boylston, Boylston.com. And hit on American Funeral Director. I think it was our April edition. I wrote it. So there's Bruce, pictures of Bruce Springsteen in a Funeral Director magazine. So
Well, it's funny you say about newspapers dying, because back when I was in college, I thought I was going to be a history teacher. So I got my degree in history with, my teacher and stuff. And then I decided that's not what I wanted to do. So the school I went to was the Eastern Illinois University, which had a daily, which was one of the few daily student newspapers in the whole country. Great journalism program, but I got into it. And after my senior year, I was offered a internship to actually write for the Chicago Tribune, covering Illinois politics down in Springfield, the capital. And being short-sighted at the time, I was worried about, it was unpaid, and I was worried about being paid. Now am I going to live? Blah 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 blah. I passed up on it, and I'm kicking myself ever since. But to your situation, who knows where I'd be at this point in time if I had gotten into it.
yeah. So but that's what I'm doing.
All right. Well, I had a couple of people send me questions earlier,
Sure.
and then we'll get into the Bruce stuff. Like, how long have you been a fan of Bruce? How'd you get into Bruce? All that kind of stuff.
I have a sister who's 4 years older than me. And this was probably 1973. She played The Wild and the Innocent over and over and over and over. And I, at the time, was probably a fan of the Osmonds or somebody like that. And I said, "Oh, are you playing this guy over again? That's all I hear is you keep playing him the same thing over and over." And she still likes to remind me of this. But I became a fan around 1975. I remember listening to the Bottom Line show live, WNEW-FM, August 15th, 1975. And remember hearing Bruce dedicating songs to people in Asbury Park and talking about Madame Marie. And I grew up in Neptune, which is the town next to Asbury. And he's talking about all my local area. And I knew there was a connection that he was from the area and everything. Then I finally first saw him in 1976 in Red Bank at what's now the Count Basie Theater. And from there, I've been a fan ever since. I think I was a fan of Seals and Crofts for a while, but then it turned into a Bruce addiction.
I can understand that. So when did you start officially, writing about him or doing any kind of publishing about him?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know when the first time I wrote about him for my college newspaper. I went to St. John's University in New York, and I think I reviewed the River albums. So that might have been the first time I actually wrote about him. And, once the internet came along, I started writing things here and there on different websites, and always enjoyed it. And, but, I've never been I've always say I never understand the New York Times reviews of things. There are big words in there that I don't understand. So I always say, I think I've always done well writing because I write like a sixth grader. What I mean by that is my reviews are simple. There's no big words that you have to go look up. I don't, to me, a show was good. He played this, not that, sometimes these reviews go so deep and everything. So I write like a fan. I am a fan.
And that comes through in your writing. And for those of you that haven't seen it, Stan always posted the set list each night. But you were at MetLife One recently, and you wrote a review about it. It was very good. I mean, for those of you that haven't seen it, go to Stan's page. It's on there, and it hits home with what's going on, with the tour and everything else. So when you were working for the paper in Newark, what did you cover?
I worked in the sports department. I was copying mostly, and I worked nights, sometimes 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I was always a night person. So they gave me a blog. This was the North Star Legend, which is now NJ.com. They gave me a blog to do boy, it must have been around the Devil's and Dust tour. They asked me if I wanted to write a Springsteen blog. And I said, yeah. I didn't get paid for it, but I enjoyed putting stuff out there. And it's weird. Feedback is always important. And I never knew if people were reading it or not. So I kept doing it. Simple stuff, set list, any Bruce news I could find. And then I remember this was 2012 at MetLife Stadium. I was in line to get, this was at a Bruce show. I was in line to get a hot dog, and I hear these two women go, is that him? I think it's him. I think it's him. I'm going to go up to him. And they go, are you Stan? I said, yeah. Like, how you at? Are you Ryan? So, are you Stan? I said, yeah. Go, oh, we read your blog. And just for people, that feedback meant so much, because sometimes you don't know if there's anyone out there reading your stuff and anything. And so I did a blog for about 10 years, which I enjoyed, and got a lot of hits at the time. Never made a dime off it or anything. Never got paid for it. But I enjoyed getting news out there, and I still do. You know, I have, even now I have a group of sources that if I can leak something, I will. Sometimes people don't want you to leak anything. When Bruce postponed the tour, 2 weeks ago or so, I got a call on that about a half hour before it came out, and was told, you're going to get a press release. It's coming out. So I messaged Howie. I did tell a few people, and I messaged Howie Chaz and said, for the Spring Nuts, I said, get ready. You're going to get inundated in about 10 minutes. So I was able to do that. But I enjoy doing it. You know, I enjoy sharing news. You mentioned the set list threads. I never realized how much they got read in Spring Nuts. I just simply put up the set list. Like I said, no big words, very simply written. If you streamed a show, I always look for something different that Bruce says or anything unique to that show. So when you stream or others stream, even from Europe, I try to pick up something like that. And I stopped doing it, and people are like, where are your set list threads? And I was like, I didn't know people wanted them. And so it's like I said, it's just very simple, but I'm glad to do it. And I try to get it up there immediately, because I usually watch whatever, if there's a live stream. So I usually try to get it up there as I can. And people like that. I think sometimes people just like a simple, here's what was played last night. Here's what time the show started. Here's what time the show ended. You know, not, you know, Backstreets was the most powerful thing and the tears came, which is fine. But it's like just simple to the point. Reader's Digest. Maybe that's the way of putting it.
Absolutely. What was Robert Christgau's thing? It was like 60 seconds. I can't remember what it was, but he had something where it was very succinct anyway.
Yeah.
But I will say I enjoyed, I'd always go back and check or look at shows that I didn't go to or stuff in Europe, and it was very appreciated on my end. And I'm seeing a lot of comments that a lot of people thank you for doing that. And it was great. I mean, now that Backstreets.com is no longer here, I mean, that used to be the go-to source. Everybody go there and check out the set list and the reviews when they came in, but we don't have any one place. You know, it's everything just like everything else. Everything's so scattered now. But it's great to do that. So I appreciate it, and I know everybody else appreciates it. So thank you for doing that.
Appreciate your live streaming. That always, Ryan's live streaming tonight. Yes. Okay, it's gonna be good. I know the set list. I don't have to guess. Not guess, but I like he played, you know, something unique tonight. It's like I can see it instead of like, did he really play that? And apparently there's a website, Setlist FM or something, that people were making up making it up what the set lists were and stuff. But I don't pay attention to that.
Luann says, love when you note what's unique about each show in the set list, which is true. Like you know, if you find something unique or he said something weird or tour debuts or US debuts, like you always make note of that. And so you're getting a lot of positive comments here.
Oh, good. I you know, and I have to give credit to Bruce Bass. People used to think I was real smart when I said, "Oh, first time this song has been played since, you know, June 14th, 2002, and so and so." It's like, no, Bruce Bass has all the information. So, and if people don't know what Bruce Bass is, do a Google search. It's the most incredible. Has every set list Bruce has done since going back to the Castiles, and every date he's played, and just a wealth of information there. It's like baseball statistics and stuff. It's just,
Absolutely. When I've done some shows for E Street Radio and done scripts and stuff, like I'll go back there and use them to check like certain, or when they played with Chuck Berry or whatever the situation was. So it's out there. I think it's Bruce Base Wiki Bruce Base or
Yeah,
something like that. But it's there, a
mm,
wealth, like you said, a wealth of information, a lot of great stuff.
yeah,
Um, so the tours, you and Gene wrote a book, basically a companion book. Is that
yeah.
correct?
Called Rock and Roll Tour of the Jersey Shore. We first put it out in 2002. Then we did our fourth edition in 2013, which I still have. With like just like newspapers, printed book sales stopped, slowed down a bit. But we had sold over 10,000 copies. We self-published. We couldn't find anyone interested in publishing it. So we've had friends who were graphic designers and local printing place here at the Jersey Shore, and we put out the book. So now we're on the fourth edition, and that still does well. We still get requests for it. It's 10 years old now, but Gene keeps saying, "Are we going to do another one?" I don't know if I have the energy to do another one, but what I like, there's always new stories to tell, though. There's just, even from 2013, that's 10 years ago, there's so many more stories I could share of Bruce history here at the Jersey Shore.
Uh,
Even the
Go ahead.
Bruce in front of the casino arcade in Asbury Park that's used on the tour posters and everything. Danny Clinch. So when you come to Asbury, Bruce behind his classic Camaro there, it's pretty cool. So there's just tons of stories.
The book is available like on Amazon, or where would somebody order?
Rock and Roll Tour
Okay.
of the Jersey Shore, it's
And
called.
is it all Bruce stuff, or is it talking about
That's
other Jersey
right.
musicians?
It's a little bit of Jersey Shore music history too, not just the Stone history of the Stone Pony. Different sites. I think we have over 200 sites at the Jersey Shore to hit. Mostly Asbury Park, Freehold, Long Branch, or in the Run House, which is kind of cool. I put up a post. The people there put a sign up. You're welcome to go on the porch now, and open the screen door. So where Mary's dress swayed or waved. So, but that's really
Yeah.
nice to do that. That house is in Long Branch. We call it the Born to Run house. It's where Bruce wrote the entire Born to Run album.
For anybody that's joining us, we're talking to Stan Goldstein, longtime Bruce aficionado and very knowledgeable. He does tours. So do you do the tours periodically, the big group tours,
Yeah,
or do
usually
you?
when there's a demand for them, like when the people were in for MetLife for the shows, we literally, Gene and I probably had 40 requests to do tours that week. And, she works full time. She's a reporter for the Asbury Park Press. I work full time and just couldn't do it. And also, I never like to do a tour the day of a show because I save my energy for the show. And it's I don't know how you feel. Sometimes after a show, I mean, Bruce is, I'm sure, is wiped. I mean, I even feel it now. I'm getting older. It's like, whoa. So, but yeah, we do the bus tours usually if there's a serenade going on or something, and many times we've had Vinny Lopez join us. So you
Hmm.
get to do a tour with an original Lee Street band member, and Vinny loves doing it. He signs autographs, takes pictures with everyone. Um, you get a picture on E Street with a real E Street band member, so that's kind of neat. But yeah, occasionally we'll do the bus tours. And this one, we did a little smaller. We've done buses as big as 56 people. This one was 38 and sold right out. But Gene and I just figured one a little bit smaller group. We had lunch at Federici's, and we always run a little late, which we even did on this one too. So, yeah.
Somebody's asking, and I'll let you. I mean, I was just there, but Kathy, Stan's tour is excellent. Gene, Stan's tour is excellent. Um, just go ahead and tell everybody kind of like what the tour consists of, if you don't mind.
Okay. It's a 4-hour tour. We also have a 2-hour tour, 4-hour tour. We'll meet people wherever they are. If they're in New York City, they can take the train down. We'll pick them up at the train. If they're staying at a local hotel or Airbnb in this area, we'll pick them up right at the Airbnb. We don't have a bus. It's right in my Ford Explorer. So we don't have a bus, Springsteen tour, or anything like that. And we show you everything in Asbury Park. If the Stone Pony's open, we'll go in there. Danny Clinch's gallery, we always go in. They're very, very nice to everybody on our tour. Tina there, Danny is there a lot. They're very, very welcoming. We'll show the Wonder Bar. We'll show the casino, it just places that Bruce talks about. Kingsley Street, Porta, which is what was the Student Prince, which is where Bruce met Clarence for the first time, and where you can eat dinner in there now. And there's just so many different sites around. Then we go up the coast. We usually show Deal, New Jersey, which is a very nice town, big money town, and that's where Patty Scaffer grew up. So we show the area where Patty grew up. Then we go to Long Branch to the Born to Run house, and we stop there. And as I said, people can go on the porch now. The occupants are very welcoming, which is nice to see. And then from there, we'll head up the coast. We go through Seabright. We share some different stories. Then we go through Rumson and show where Bruce used to live, his Rumson house, which I was when Bruce lived there, I didn't really want to show it, but now he hasn't lived there for years, so it's kind of neat. I once, this was around 2004, was able to talk to Bruce about different locations in the book. This was after our second book came out, the second edition. And I told him I didn't have his home addresses in there, and he just said to me, "That is appreciated." Although anyone can find out, a Google search tells you where it is. So then we go into Red Bank and to talk about news stories. That's where the band rehearsed this past January for the tour at the Vogel Theater. That's part of the Count Basie. So that's what I like. There's always new stories to share. And Red Bank is also where Clarence's old bar, Big Man's West. The building's still there. It's falling apart. I don't know if they're going to tear it down or not, but we show where that is. And Bon Jovi has a restaurant that we show too. And then from there, we head out to Freehold and all kinds of things. That's where Bruce's 3 childhood homes were. 2 of them are still standing. There's 2 trees. It's a little confusing because there's 2 different trees for photo ops in Freehold. One is by where his first home was on Randolph Street, which is no longer there, and the tree is no longer there. But that's the tree he referred to in the Broadway show in the beginning and also at the end when he said his tree was gone and he put his hand in the dirt, which I believe people even did on our bus tour. They put like he did. And that tree was there up until about 12 years ago, but it got torn down by the town. And then there's a tree by his second house, 39.5 Institute Street, where he lived from about age 6 to 14. And that's the tree he leans up against that's on the Born in the USA lyric sheet and in the tour book. So people love to do that same pose that Bruce did. So that tree is still there. And we also show his final freehold home, 68 South Street, which is where he doesn't say it by name, but that's where, before Last Man Standing, when he tells the story, how George Theus knocked on his door and then took him to a part of town where he began his rock and roll adventure, and that would have been the Tex and Marion Vineyards house, which is long gone, but is now Vineyard Park in Freehold, which is also right next to where the textile mill was. And part of that building is still there, which is interesting. I noticed when Bruce does My Hometown in the Broadway show and in concert this past year, he no longer sings "They're closing down the textile mill by the railroad tracks." He sings "They're closing down the rug mill by the railroad tracks." I don't know why he made that change, but you'll notice that if you listen to anything different. And from there, we then go to Belmar. And I say that's the #1 Springsteen fan photo op. I call it the Springsteen fans Abbey Road shot, the corner of 10th Avenue and East Street, and there's a guitar there now too, which I've been doing this a long time, and even more than the Stone Pony or the trees and Freehold, that's the #1 shot that everyone wants right at the corner. And quick story, back in January, they had a Greetings from Asbury Park symposium at Monmouth University. And David Sanchez was there, Vinny Lopez, and Gary Talent. So 3 of the original 6 members of the East Street Band, Clarence and Danny passing away, and Bruce being the other one. And the next day they were at Tom Cunningham's radio show, Springsteen on Sunday. And it's at a bar A, it's in South Belmar. And I said, Eileen Chapman was there, runs the Springsteen archives. I said, we're only a half mile from 10th and East Street. Can we get David, Gary, and Vinny to take a picture on the corner of 10th and East Street? And we got that picture done. So that was pretty cool. And David lives in Hawaii, so it was really nice that we had 3 of the 5 there. And that's a photo I'm very proud of that we got. And I keep telling Danny Clinch he has to get a picture of Bruce on that corner. There's never been a picture of Bruce there. So Danny does these photo shoots with Bruce, and I'm always like, will you go to 10th and E? Get a picture of Bruce there. So hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Of all the pictures that Danny's taken, and with any photographer, we have no pictures of him on that corner, which is
Right.
I'm sure he goes by there all the time. Maybe
Yep.
he's got something, some weird kind of mojo in his head. He doesn't want a picture at that corner. Somebody, Kathy was asking, will you do? Yeah, Kathy, he'll do anywhere from what'd you say, 1 to 4
Yeah.
people, Stan?
It's the same price, 1 to 4. And we even have a 2-hour tour too. And we haven't raised prices in 10 years. So it's a little,
Okay.
not cheap, but it's compared to private tours that I've seen in other areas, it is inexpensive. It's $250 for 4 hours, whether that's one person or 4 people. And I was in San Francisco 4 years ago, and I noticed their private tours were $350 and up. So we're always, comfortable with that.
How would somebody go about contacting you to try to schedule?
We have a website. They can email me. The email is NJ, like New Jersey, NJ Rockmap, NJROCKMAP at AOL.com. I'm still an AOL guy. You laugh all you want. It works fine. I've never had a problem with it, and it's free. So I'm still an old AOL dinosaur. But I get my email.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever works. I get some younger people to give me crap about being Yahoo, and I'm like, that's what it is. That's what people know me by. That I'm not changing.
Right. And we have a website too, which is njrockmap.com, which has information on our book and tours also. So NJ, like Jersey Rock, ROCK map, NJ Rock map.
Kathy, if you didn't catch that, just send me a direct message, and I'll get you the info that you need. Stan's always out there. You can find him somewhere. Somebody was asking earlier, do you know his landlord? She gave me a name. But I can't remember.
Marilyn Rocky was her name.
Yeah, that was it.
He was the landlord at 7.5 Western Court, which is the Born to Run house in Long Branch. And she rented to Bruce back in the mid-'70s, 1970. Bruce was there about 16 months, paid $200 a month rent. He called her the landlordess. And there's actually a great letter he wrote to her when he was moving out. And I think he said the record company will be sending the final check, and thank you for everything. And how do you like my autograph? I've been working on my autograph. So that letter has been around and has gone through different auction houses. And I think Marilyn sold it for $200, and it probably goes for $2,000 or more now. But I'll make this quick. She has a story, though, that she told. She ran in, this is in the 1990s, she ran into Clarence Clemens in Red Bank. And Clarence said, "Oh, yeah, you're the landlord. Yes. Is the piano still in the house? We were all there, the E Street Band, and we all signed, I guess, underneath. And when we were there, so if the piano's there, go check it out and get it." So she immediately went to the house, spoke to the people who were living, I guess they were renters at the time. And they said, "Oh, the piano, we just put it out in the curb 3 weeks ago and garbage took it." So after all these years in the 1990s, they missed by 3 weeks of getting this relic, which I mean, would it be worth a fortune in an auction? I mean, this is the piano that Bruce Springsteen composed the whole Born to Run album on. And it's like, wow. So she still tells she missed it by 3 weeks or so of getting it. And somebody, maybe it's in the garbage or someone picked it up somewhere. And that house is owned by 3 Bruce Springsteen fans now. They've owned it for over 10 years, and they rent it out to a family who has, I think they finally realized, not finally, they always knew it was, where Bruce came, but they realized, especially during the MetLife shows when a lot of people were around touring, that they had a lot of visitors. So they were like, let's welcome them on the porch, and let's welcome them to the screen door, to slam the screen door, so, which was really cool.
It's amazing to me about the piano, and somebody asked that, and I was going to ask you, so I'm glad you brought it up. That's a fantastic story, which is a terrible outcome, but with all, like when they did the display at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, it was clearly obvious that he's been holding on to stuff for decades, and the fact he didn't have the piano just like blows my mind.
Yeah, there's a warehouse here at the Jersey store, very nondescript, that has all his stuff in it. So it's like where they keep everything, I guess. And eventually Monmouth University is going to have a facility. Now it's in a small house if you ever visited, but they're going to have sort of like the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa. They're going to have a major area with everything that will be on display, and that hopefully that will be built in a couple of years. They've been talking about it.
All right, we're talking to Stan Goldstein, and the tour is very, very well done. I mean, I know quite a bit from just reading and being a fan for years, but just the stuff that he knows, and even I've been to Red Bank and I've been to the Count Basie several times, but I had no idea that Clarence's old place was down the block, and you showed it to us, and the fact it's in disarray and probably going to be torn down is
Yeah.
sad. But yes, the tour is very well worth it. So for anybody out there that's listening and has never gone there, I highly suggest it. And we did go to Federici's, which for those of you who've never been to Federici's, oh my God, pizza's there is excellent. Thin crust, it's excellent. So check it
You
out if
liked
you're
it?
ever in Freehold.
You liked it good, yeah. You were on the other side of the room, so I never got over there too much, but I think most people enjoyed that. And we enjoyed doing that. Get a nice little break in the middle of the tour and have lunch, and that was good. And that's Bruce's. He still goes there. That's Bruce's place. Still, he still stops in there.
Yeah, I remember reading Peter Carlin's book, and he said basically he and Bruce would go there a couple times, or they went there a few times during the writing of the book, and that was just kind of the place they went to.
Let me just. This will be another quick story. You mentioned
Sure.
Peter Carlin wrote the book Bruce that came out, I believe, in 2012. And I showed him around the shore. I did a few tours with him and everything. Real nice guy. Did a real nice job with the book. He spoke to Bruce, allowed him to speak to his mom, his aunts, his sisters, every E Street Band member. So it was really, Peter had an opportunity that no one else had previously. But I was trying to reach Peter one Saturday, and I called him, and he picked up, and he didn't say hello. And I'm listening, and he's having lunch with Bruce. And I think what happened, maybe the phone was in his top pocket. And it's like when you have lunch with Bruce Springsteen, you're not taking any
Yeah.
calls. So he immediately hit it, but instead of hit the red button, he hit the green button. So I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, I'm debating. I have like the angel and the devil on my shoulder. It's like, maybe I'm listening to this conversation, but he's interviewing Bruce Springsteen right now for his book. And they're at Federici's in Freehold. I can tell because I hear the waitress coming over and everything. So I sat there for about 15 minutes. It's like, all right, I'm just listening in. And it was, Bruce was talking about the Deer Hunter, the movie, and Vietnam. And I'm like, holy cow, Peter doesn't know I'm listening to this right now. And then after about 15 minutes, the angel went out and said, nah, this is a private conversation. Hang up the phone. But I did listen for a while. That was just some experience.
You've got more self-control than most of us. Yes, to your point, devil and angel on each shoulder is like, do I listen? Do I not listen? But yeah, we all, I think we would have hung on as long as we could to every word. Yeah, Federici is a great place. Just going down to Freehold is excellent. I've been there 4 or 5 times, and it's like it's the same thing with Asbury. I'd never been to Asbury until like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, and you got this whole world in your head. You've been listening to music for decades, and then you go and you see it, and it's just like it takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's having a renaissance now. Asbury was my city of ruins. It was not a nice place up till about 2007. Then it started to change. Now it's activity all over and condos being built. Gentrification is going on there. They just had this past weekend the See Here Now Festival. Drew over 30,000 people. The Foo Fighters were the headliners on Sunday night, and the Killers were the headliner on Saturday. And they had an after show at the Stone Pony Saturday, and Brandon Flowers of the Killers and Jake Clemens was there. And they played Promised Land. So that was kind of neat.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know how they get all those because I mean I've been to Asbury even during the winter months when it's not very touristy and it's like there's not a whole lot of housing around there. So I have no idea where 30,000 people stayed, but
Yeah, all over the place. And I got to see the Foo Fighters. I was driving. I didn't go to the festival, but I took some friends to drop them off by the entrance. And Sunday, as I was going, I saw a police car come through with 5 Cadillac Escalades, New York license plates, and a police car in the back. And going through the lights and going toward the ocean, toward the festival. Then I realized that was the Foo Fighters. So I saw their what do you call it? their
Their convoy
thank
or
you.
what? Yeah,
That's an entourage
motorcade. Yeah.
convoy. So I guess that's what Bruce does too when he does shows. But that was kind of neat to see.
So where did they set up the stage? Like down towards the Paramount
There's
or?
stages. There's the one. There's one right by Convention Hall on the north side. Then there's one at the far end of the beach by that big senior citizen tower. And then there's another one in the park across from the Berkeley
Okay.
Hotel.
Okay.
So three
Okay.
different stages.
Okay. So I saw the one on the beach. I think Barry Lepisky, he had some drone
Yeah.
fitted, and it was like all the people on the beach was nuts, and I couldn't quite
Yeah.
tell the orientation.
Yeah. The Beach Boys played. John Stamos played with the Beach Boys, so people were excited by that. Sheryl Crow was there. Weezer. But they very successful.
Well, kudos to Danny for putting that together. What is this, the third year that he's done that?
Fourth year, I believe. Fourth
Okay.
or fifth. Yeah.
Oh, Barry's on here.
All right.
Barry says that was me.
That was better.
So a couple other questions, and then we'll kind of get to this year's tour and any thoughts you have and any stuff else that's going on. I know some people don't want to do this, and so if you don't want to answer this, that's fine. Any idea how many times you've seen Bruce perform?
You know, I've never had a number. I saw him in the bars a lot in Asbury Park in the Shore area back starting in the 1970s. So probably 300 to 400. But like a lot of people, I don't have a number. I never did. And don't get me wrong, it's fine if you have a number. That's great. But to me, it's even if you've seen him once, you're his biggest fan as me or you or anybody. It's not a competition. And I'll say this too. I know people who have seen him over 1,000 times, and they don't say a word about it. They don't know a number. They don't care to have a number, and it's not a competition. Maybe competition is the wrong word, but it's just not important to them. But then again, I don't have a problem with someone saying I've seen him 241 times or something like that either. So,
right.
That's good. But probably 300 to 400. Maybe someday I'll figure it out. But
well, there's a flip side to that. I have met some people that are like, I've seen him 375 times. It was almost like, oh, you've only seen him 30 times. It's like that. I don't get into that at all. Like, I have no interest in that. And Bruce, I don't think Bruce would have any interest in that.
Yeah, I'll add a quick story in on that. I was very close with Obi, who was Bruce's fan number one, and she started seeing Bruce back when he was with Child. She never saw the Castiles, but Child back in Long Branch in about 1969. And if for those who don't know, Obi always followed Bruce around when he was with Child, when he was at Steel Mill. And she would camp out to be up front when he even was playing with Steel Mill. She appreciated back then what we all appreciate now. And she just knew this guy was something special. So she said to Bruce, probably around 1972, 73, she said, I always like to be up front. And, now you're playing theaters and stuff. Can you help me be up front? I'd like to be in the front row always. He said to her, Obi, whenever I play, you will always have the front row center seats. And he kept that promise to her for 40 plus years.
Wow.
Even with the GA. So my story with that is Obi probably has seen Bruce more than anyone. It's well over 1,000 times. And I was with her somewhere and somebody didn't know who she was. And we were talking and the guy says, you don't understand. I've seen Bruce 30 times. I know these things. And Obi just said, yeah, you do. It's like, it wasn't, that's the thing. Sometimes you should know who you're talking to or what. And she didn't, say, I'm Obi, I've seen, she just said, no, yeah, you definitely do. So that's the thing.
Yeah. Obi, at one point in time, wasn't she Steve's assistant or personal assistant or something?
Assistant, and then she worked for Bruce up till around the Born in the USA tour. She lived with Bruce, not as a girlfriend, just as an assistant. She was totally devoted to him. Whatever he needed, she did. And but she was very close. When she passed away in 2017, Bruce spoke at her memorial service. Was in Asbury Park. So Bruce showed up. Little Steven showed up. John Eddie showed up. So she was special to a lot. Meant a lot to Bruce.
One other question somebody asked was, so Stan answered this earlier for anybody that's just joining. First time you saw him was 76 on the Chicken Scratch Tour,
August
right?
1976, Count Basie Theater in Red Bank. I still have my ticket stub somewhere. So, yeah. The thing I remember about it, I was between my sophomore and junior years of high school. And it was like I said, my sister was so into them. And then for me, it was like, oh, there they are now, like live and in person. I had seen pictures of them and everything. And there they were, very colorful, Steve with the hat. And my sister said, when Danny Federici comes up front with the accordion, he's going to play Sandy. And that's what he did that night. So, yeah. Wow. August, yeah. I still have the ticket stuff. Wow. $6 a ticket.
Almost 50 years later,
Yeah.
it's amazing the career he's had, the
Yeah.
productivity he's had, the quality of the work as he's gotten older. Like it's just astounding. I mean, there's very few artists of his stature. Paul McCartney, Stones, that type, Bob Dylan, but like he's right up there with just everything.
And first time I saw him in a bar, and thanks to Bruce Space, I know the exact date. It was October of 1979. It was the Fast Lane in Asbury Park, which is no longer there. It's in the space right next to Asbury Lanes where the parking lot is. It's right by Danny Clinch's gallery. If you're facing Danny's gallery, it would be right to the left. And that for me, around 1979, 80, 81, I saw Bruce in there a lot. He had left the Stone Pony, not left the Stone Pony, but he stopped going to the Stone Pony. Supposedly the bouncers beat up Danny Federici one night. So Bruce started hanging out at the Fast Lane. But I was seeing the Beaver Brown band, John Cafferty and Beaver Brown. And it was a Friday night, and the bars used to be open to 3 a.m. And I remember it was about 2:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden Bruce jumps on stage. Now, this is 1979, and my first reaction was like, oh my God, I thought these things only happened years ago. Like I had read about like 1976 and 77 at the Stone Pony, and it's like, that was only 2-3 years ago. And I'm thinking, when you're that young, like everything's ancient history, it's like, I can't believe he's still doing this. So, but that was pretty wild.
Somebody said, I love Stan's story about the New Year's Eve 1980 show. Do you have something specific that you talked about?
Not usually night. I was at the Nassau Coliseum for that show. I went to all three shows. There was the 29th, 30th, and 31st, I believe, or 28th, 29th, and 31st. No, I was there, and I just remember it was funny because, I don't know. I expected New Year's Eve Bruce was going to play to 3 in the morning or something. Who knows? But I remember after midnight came, he went into Rosalita. And I knew Rosalita meant then the encores are starting. So my reaction was like, oh, he's gonna, that's it? I mean, we're going into the encores right after this already? I just expect him to go. But what a show. I mean, you listen to it now. It's just an incredible show. And he held out without a gun,
Oh,
which
wow.
he was killing time before midnight. He wasn't quite sure and he needed a song. So that was that. But yeah, that's pretty much my New Year's Eve story.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm 49, so I was born in 74. The first time I saw him was on Tunnel of Love tour. So I mean, that's about as far back as I go, and I haven't been a really serious fan until the last 10, 15 years. But you'd hear people talk about seeing him on Darkness and River and what was the best tour, all that stuff. But when I saw the No Nukes show, it just blows my mind at how energetic and how tight and how fast paced it was, and like just his showmanship and just all the crazy stuff with the, if you've had a heart transplant or a brain transplant, like just all the shtick, and him and Clarence, which was obviously just freestyle. They hadn't rehearsed that at all. It was like, it's just nuts. It just blew my mind.
Yeah, that was it. Always a great live show.
So somebody asked, I mean, that's hard for you because you've been a fan now for almost 50 years. Any specific tours that stand out to you as being favorites or ones that you look back at?
Yeah, I always have an interesting response to this. A lot of people say the Darkness tour or the River tour, which I saw shows up. The point where I thought the band and Bruce were on top of the world, which they always have been, but really, really incredible, was the summer of 1984, the Born in the USA period, when he was as big as not Britney Spears, Taylor Swift is now. I mean, he was on top of the world, and he played 10 shows at the then Brendan Byrne Arena in the Meadowlands. The arena's still there; they don't use it anymore. But and I went to only 2 of those, but it was just incredible energy, and the crowd. You know, we were younger, we were in our 20s, and it was like just he was on top of the world, and so were we. And that to me, right around, I think I saw 5 shows. I saw some in Philadelphia later that year. That to me was just the peak, not the peak, but just for me, the best I remember seeing Bruce and the band. It was just, wow. It was just the energy in the whole arena to them was something. So,
Um, so for as far as this tour is concerned, so kind of switching gears and getting into this year's tour, I don't know where you want to start or what you want to talk about. Just I'll kind of
yeah.
leave it up to you on what you'd like to talk about.
I'll say, like many others, I think I missed 4 shows because of postponements, which was a little frustrating, but I understand, and I know others did too. So that was something. I expected to go to Mohegan Sun last Sunday, but that didn't happen either. But I was in Tampa opening night, and I liked the show. I had followed what he rehearsed in Red Bank, and then later in Trenton, they were out rehearsing. And I know a lot of people don't like to know. I always like to know. And so I pretty much knew the structure of the show. And a friend texted me the set list before the first show in Tampa, which I looked at, which I don't know if I really should have, because I pretty much knew what the show was going to be. But I liked it. I thought they were good. I thought they were fresh. And the next day I flew back to Newark from Tampa, and I sat next to John Landau and his wife in the airport. I saw him looking for seats, and I had 2 open seats by me. So I said, Mr. Landau, come sit down. And very, very nice. And we talked. He wanted to know my thoughts of the show. And he said, don't expect it to change too much. Bruce has a set list he's happy with, and that's probably going to be it. Which, if you look back opening night in Tampa, there it has changed a bit. And but he said that. But the tour itself, I know some people feel you're not allowed to criticize anything. I think you can. I mean, for us who follow set list and listen to CDs and stuff, don't get me wrong, every show is fantastic. Every show is great. The show itself is wonderful. But Bruce was always about spontaneity. And you got different stories. You never knew what he might pull out and something, or just things fresh. And it happened here or there this tour, but mostly he settled into, the same story before Last Man Standing, the same story before I'll See You in My Dreams, which is fine. He's older and he's got a structure now. And I think earlier in the tour, people were happy. He played If I Was a Priest 3 times, and then it's sort of, there were 12 straight shows with the same set list at one point, which, again, the shows are great, but, for us who followed Bruce so much, we always liked the nuggets. What was he going to play? And then he did loosen up a bit. Foxborough, the second Foxborough show, and then MetLife, he pulled out Sherry Darling and a few others. The last night we got Jersey Girl to close the show. So we got different, but still a great show. I'm still excited to go, and it's still fantastic. I'll have to admit, I'm a little, like everybody, I'm a little concerned with his health. It's got to be real serious if they postponed everything up until November, which is still 6 weeks from now. So I'm just hoping he does hit the road again in November, and it's something to be concerned about. With his age, he's going to be 74. Sunday is his birthday coming up, and
Yep.
but the tour, like I said, some people are like, I see, oh, how dare you criticize this or that? You can criticize. Doesn't mean you don't like the show. You're entitled to an opinion,
Right.
and that's what I missed. I missed the spontaneity. I missed the storytelling. There was the one time in Europe where someone had a sign, "Can I have your harmonica?" and my boyfriend will propose to me or something like that. So which was nice. That was a little something that we were used to, but it didn't happen too much anymore.
Um, any theory, and I have whatever. We can all have our theories, whatever. Like Bruce is Bruce. He's going to do what he's doing. I'm not criticizing. Like the man is phenomenal, no question about it. But we all like to think about it. Those of us that are serious fans. Do you think the fact that he was doing Broadway for all that time kind of led into him liking that structure?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask that. Yes. I think he got comfortable with Broadway, that, he put on this great show night after night in Broadway. And I know people went to 20 or 30 Broadway shows over the
Wow.
years, and pretty much the same show night after night. But I think he got comfortable with a structure like that. And maybe because he's older, the band is older, maybe he just felt, I'm not going to take as many chances as I did in the past, that type of thing. But that's a good point. So some of us have said E Street meets Broadway, and could be.
I mean, I was lucky enough to see Broadway twice, which a lot of people didn't go for cost reasons, whatever, it was expensive, no question about it. But I went twice, one on my own, and I got lucky and won the
Oh, well,
contest for E Street Radio the night he had they had the theater to themselves, but, and there was such a big difference between night one, because I saw the first time in November, and like everybody was so tight, and like I was tight the whole time, and I was like sitting there like this the whole time, and until it was over, I didn't realize I'd been doing this the whole time. I was so tense listening because like you were sitting in his living room listening to him. And I saw it again, March, I think the following year, and he had loosened up. The crowd was loosened up. So I'm glad I did see it a second time, but it had to be exhausting for
yeah,
him. I mean, he's basically going to therapy, every night that he was doing that show, and to open up all those wounds and the good and the bad. And it's like, it had to be exhausting for him mentally, emotionally.
yeah. I saw an interview where he said he enjoyed it every single night that he did it, that he really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was very powerful. And, it was like, I just remember I felt like it was a privilege to be there. And it was just real exciting. And I think for a lot of fans too, they were able to get his autograph on the way in and out, and selfies and things like that. That if you put in an effort and got there early, up until the end, you pretty much could get an autograph and stuff, which was really neat. And after the show too, except the last time he did it, which was it 2 years ago already, at the St. James Theater. Because of COVID, he never did stop for autographs or anything like that when he did the 30 shows. But wow, 2 years. I'm sorry, it's just the time flies. But yeah, but no, I saw Broadway I think 6 times total, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it every single time.
The thing I was saying, I was talking to a lady named Yetta that I met at MetLife a couple weeks ago. She's from Brazil, and I always find it fascinating. Like I'll ask people, because I've interviewed some interesting people. I interviewed a gentleman named Leland, who's a Navajo Indian from the Indian Reservation out in New Mexico. Yetta from Brazil. Different people that you would not expect to be like typical Bruce fans. We all know the demographics there. And it's just always fascinating to find out how people got turned on time after time. Is like, I had an older brother, I had an older sister, just like yourself. Same thing with me. I had a brother that was 10 years older than me, and he turned me on to Bruce and a lot of other stuff. But anyway, I've said this about Bruce. We were talking about the book signing. I don't think any other artist of his stature would do some things he's done, which is the book signing, meeting 800 fans in one day and taking a picture and being so happy to be there and smiling. The Broadway show and being that intimate and doing the signing on his way in and out. I just don't see anybody else of his stature doing that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
The book. I'm glad you brought up the book appearance, which was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
I think the first one was 7 years ago. This month was in Freehold. Um, think about it. For $20, you got a book signed by Bruce, and he did sign them all. I know that he took his time. I think he signed over 20,000 books
Wow.
between all the appearances. And he, unlike Bob Dylan, who apparently printed all his autographs, and others that have come out with fake, Bruce did sign each and every one of them. But not only that, he took, like you just said, he took the time to you got a picture with him. I mean, how wonderful. And like you said, what other artists would do that? I mean, it was just incredible how many people were able to get a picture with Bruce Springsteen in an autographed book. And, and I was lucky, the first one, Freehold here, they didn't pre-announce it. All of a sudden, I went online one morning and a friend said, look, Bruce is doing this book appearance in Freehold. You can get tickets right now. So I went on. I could have had 10 tickets. It was like so easy compared to other ones that they later advertised. And then there was one in New York too the next day. So I figured, oh, I'll get a ticket for that one too. And that was at the Barnes and Noble in Manhattan. And I went back the next day, and Bruce said, "Oh, you're back." So I felt kind of funny, but yeah. But
Uh, the one thing about Chicago, I saw him here in Chicago, and me and a friend named Judy Lindsay met him. We went down there. I think it was about 800 people, but like we got there early. We were about 30th in line, and but there was 800 people, and it was just phenomenal. I don't know if it was his people or the bookstore people, but it was phenomenal the way they had the process set up, and like you were in and out, and but you had your time, and but CBS did a report on it later that night, which I watched, and I guess at several points in time that day, the line was wrapped around, it was a big building downtown Chicago, so the line was wrapped around a city block outside, and it was cold and a little rainy, and apparently Bruce kept asking, like, hey man, how are the people doing outside? Can we get some more people in? Can we get them in the lobby? Like, he was all worried about the fans. It's like, again, like, not that other artists don't care, but like for him to be that worried about the fans just is staggering.
yeah, and if you look at every photo that someone puts up, Bruce doesn't look grumpy. He's smiling in every single one, doing the pointing thing. And I mean, that shows how much he cares about his fans. He
Yeah.
does. And the one thing I'll say too, though, is which you were just saying about how organized it was. His people were also like, okay, take your picture, say a quick hello, move. Meaning, just because, like you said, 800 people lined up, if everyone sat there and talked to him for 2 minutes, it was going to be a 10-hour process. So that's what I give them credit. They were like, go ahead, get your picture, got your picture, okay, next, which they have to
Right.
do. They have.
But he was very gracious. It's like, how many times, what are you going to say to a guy in 20 seconds that, has been part of your
Right.
life and your music is part of your DNA? Like, you carry it all right here. What are you going to say that he hasn't heard a million times? But whatever. So I went up and I shook his hand and he put his arm around me, but I'm walking off, and I had read the book by the time I got there, and I just turned around really quick because I'm like, I'm never going to have this chance again. I said, I just want to tell you, man, you wrote a great fucking book. And like, he got the biggest smile on his face. And I thought, if I can give Bruce one smile for all the stuff that he's given me in life, then that's all I ever
Right.
need.
And not that we sell their books, but those books are worth over $300 now
Oh wow.
because they are, special edition with the autograph in them. And so they're collector's items for sure.
On the tour, any thoughts as to why I mean, I've got my own thoughts, but I'm interested to see if you have any thoughts on why, he goes from, whatever, 3.5, typically on average, maybe longer, maybe a little bit shorter, to pretty much 245, 250, maybe getting to close to that 3 hour stretch. Any thoughts?
Just think that he's older now. When they did Australia in 2017, the first show I think was about 330, and then the shows after that went to about 250. And I think it may have hit him like, I'm not so sure I could do 330 anymore consistently. And I think sort of what John Landau had told me, that he found a groove. This is what he does. The shows are basically anywhere from 245 to maybe, I don't know, maybe one went to 310 or so, but that's it. Nothing longer. And he never ever came back after. Maybe in Gothenburg was it? He did Twist and Shout after I'll See You in My Dreams, but he always ended with I'll See You in My Dreams. And except for the last show at MetLife where he did Jersey Girl, but it was always pretty much. I guess my point is there was not much spur of the moment stuff, and he stuck to that schedule. I guess they know their limits. That's what he can do. And if you notice, before the postponements, they had moved a couple dates. They had moved the Washington, D.C. show, and they had moved the San Francisco show, because I think it was going to be 6 shows in 8 nights. And I think Bruce, maybe in Europe, said, it's a little too much for me and the band right now. So they needed a little more time off.
I agree. I remember very clearly because I was at the Philly night one show in 16 when he came back to the U.S. It was incredibly hot. Friday was even hotter. Anyway,
Yeah,
fantastic show. And it went for, I kept looking at my watch thinking, okay, he went on. We're getting pretty close, and it kept going and going. I was like, shit, he's going for it. Intentionally or not, I mean, who knows? But the set list that night was just phenomenal. It was almost like he was getting in that mode for the book and
Yeah.
had all the early stuff in his mind. So it was almost like a Born to Run night almost. I mean, he played a lot off Greetings and Wild and
Yeah.
Innocent.
What was it? The first, I'd have to look, dozen songs, 15 songs were off of Greetings and Wild and Innocent.
Yeah.
Thundercrack and that's what I'm saying. Where people like are saying you're not allowed to criticize Bruce. It's like not criticizing, but I miss the spontaneity like that where you never quite knew. I remember, and I know this is a different time and they're older, but I remember 2012. I was at a show with some friends at Philadelphia at the baseball stadium, and we had a pool. We each put in $1, and there were 10 of us who said, "What's he going to open with?" And we had 10 different songs because you didn't know. And I think none of us got it right. I think he opened with Factory that night because it was Labor Day. So, but that's the type of thing I miss where you just never knew. And we had 10 different choices for what he might open with. And, again, I respect he's older and things, but I missed a little bit of that. Now you would say No Surrender, Night, or My Love Will Not Let You Down. And you usually get, or then it became Lonesome Day, right?
Right.
So
The reason I brought up Philly was I remember clearly a couple days after, I can't remember if it was in Backstreets or somewhere, but Gary was quoted as saying, like, the length of the shows is just getting ridiculous. We're standing up there, anything after 3 hours, it's ridiculous at this point in time. And for Gary to say that, Gary's pretty quiet. For him to say that, I was like, maybe there's something going on. So I think maybe like the band and maybe Steve kind of went to him. He's like, dude, like we need to dial it back for all of us, for our health, and
yeah,
for you especially. Like we need to dial it back. So
yeah,
that was kind of my thought.
yeah.
So after the fact, I had no knowledge. Most people had no knowledge of anything that was going on with him. But the fact that he played, I went to all 3 MetLife shows. My opinion was each show was great. There's never been a bad Bruce show that I've been to. And he wouldn't do a bad show, but each night got progressively better. I thought Sunday night was best. But knowing that he was probably in pain and who knows the extent of the pain just blows my mind that he was able to go out there and play like some of the best shows of the
Yeah.
whole tour. uh, so somebody said something about, was there some kind of ruckus going on night 3 that I didn't catch on anything?
No, there was ruckus with the GA line, but that's a different story from
Oh,
I was, but I understand for the lineup there was some tensions going on for night 3. But I didn't, I've asked others, I didn't notice anything, especially night 3, where I said, wow, he doesn't look good or he's slowing down. I mean, there were some, I mentioned the one in Philadelphia in 2012, the second night, he ran out of gas halfway through, you could tell. And then many talk about the Mohegan Sun show, the second one in 2014,
yeah.
where he definitely halfway through the show ran out of gas. And nobody I talked to noticed anything that he was hurting at all at any of the MetLife shows. He seemed to be, really in good shape. And Jersey Girl was phenomenal. And he
Jungle
seemed,
Land, Somewhere in the Night. I mean, we
yeah,
got.
yeah. Yeah, he seemed really happy. So that was a surprise to me that, he was hurting. And I did hear the reason the Philadelphia shows were postponed. The 2 stadium ones was the same reason. So I guess he, peptic ulcer, however you say it. Yeah. We all went Googling, reading up on it, I'm sure.
Right.
But I heard from someone who would know that was the reason the Philadelphia shows were postponed. And then I guess he felt okay to try Foxborough and MetLife. And then I guess after MetLife, he said, nope.
I thought maybe he had the same issue. They canceled Philly because of that, but then he felt better. Maybe he got treatment, so he
Yeah.
felt good doing Foxborough. And then there was no way, shape, or form that he was going to disappoint, his
Yeah.
hometown fans and cancel those last 3 shows. But for him to get out there and do what he did in
Yeah.
pain, like I've talked to some people that their husband has had that and excruciating stuff. I mean, this is not a simple thing of, oh, I got a little tummy ache. This is full on, you got pain that you can't control type situation.
Yeah. And that Sunday night show was hot too. I don't know if
Oh,
they were conditioning up on the stage or blowers, but that was hot and humid that night. The
absolutely.
Friday night show was perfect. That was 70 degrees, no humidity. But Sunday night was that was hot. Yeah.
So, any thoughts on? I'll just tell you my thoughts. You can interject or whatever. But we all been hearing rumors about 2024 shows and what it's going to look like, and U.S. Europeans. You're going to go down south, like Southern Hemisphere. But I think until they know how he's doing, that they're not going to announce anything. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. Just I don't know anything. So I made a mistake on one of your live streams of making a comment about Patty that she probably wouldn't be at any more shows, and I only meant that because she only's been at 2 shows, so just that I wouldn't expect her anymore. I don't think she's going to all of a sudden appear again, and not just get and all of a sudden it went on Backstreet. Stan says Patty's done. It's like no, I didn't mean that. So, but I'm just waiting to see. Like you, I want to see that these Canada shows do go on, and I'm concerned. But as far as I know, I guess he'll go back to Europe next year if everything's okay. And we already know the Philadelphia shows have been rescheduled for August of 2024. And again, this I don't know anything official, but just through the scuttlebutt, I heard he's not going to Australia or New Zealand until January, February 2025.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, which watch next week they'll announce that it's 2024, and I'll look through it.
You never know. You never know with the guy. He always keeps us guessing.
He does. He does. He always keeps us guessing. So, but that's what I've heard. So I think they'll probably hold off just till November to see how he's doing, and maybe even see if he gets through that Canadian stretch okay. There's a bunch of shows there, and then they'll take it from there about what's going on for next year with Europe. But I would definitely think he'll go back to Europe. They sell out every show there, it seems, and as we know, we'll be back in the United States too. And he's got to make up. They're going to try to make up these shows too. You got Columbus, Albany, Mohegan Sun. Then you got 2 Pittsburgh shows. You got Baltimore. You got Washington D.C. The stadiums. So there's stuff to be made up too, which would be next summer. So they'll have to plot all those in.
And Columbus got rescheduled again for a third time. So that I was thinking, I was looking at the schedule, and I'm like, well, they can't do any of the outdoor shows, obviously, but maybe they could. But I think they're going to wait, see how he does with Canada, if he even gets to Canada, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
I hate to ask, but God, every night it was somebody asking about Patty, and my thought is on Patty is she's working, from what I understand, she's working on her own album that she's been working on for a while, so she's been focusing on that. Grandkid, grandson, all that type of stuff. I just think she's kind of just done with, not done with it for now, but at least for now, she's got other things to do.
Yeah. No one knows. No one's commented, and she did 2 shows. She was there opening night in Tampa, and she was at the 3rd show in Hollywood, Florida. She was at the rehearsals in Red Bank back in January. She was there, but for whatever reason, she isn't there. And I won't say anything like that Backstreet post. But I don't know. Like I said, I just my own guess, since she hasn't been at any of these, I wouldn't expect her to show up. I hope I'm wrong. I always said, I used to say Patty Scaffa was not present when I did my set list reviews, and then I stopped doing it because pretty much Patty Scaffa's not present. So if she is present, then that's the news. But I don't know. She just decided she didn't want to tour, or wasn't comfortable or something. So and there were pictures of her with Jessica out at a horse show out in the Hamptons last week. So she's out and about, but not touring. And Bruce hasn't done an interview yet this tour, so
any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? Since Stevie seems to kind of be not the mouthpiece, but he's been speaking openly, and it seems like maybe on Bruce's behalf. Any thoughts on why Bruce hasn't done any?
Bruce picks his spots for interviews. He did the Howard Stern interview, and he picks his spots to who he talks to and stuff. When Western Stars came out, I think he was talking to everybody when the movie came out. He was on every podcast and everything. But, he's always been, and his people, very protective of what he said. He opened up with Rolling Stone about the ticket prices, and Chris Jordan of the Asbury Park Press interviewed him too. And I don't think his answer was the best. Your money's at the door? No, Bruce. I don't know if someone's unhappy with a show, if they can go say, I want my money back. But, he might have handled that better. But I respect his answer, though, which is true. They should make the money, not people off of StubHub or something like that. And it's expensive, but it is Bruce. And I don't think we've ever been disappointed in like, wow, I spent that much money, but it wasn't a great show. But as to why, no, he picks the spots when he wants to do interviews. But I think if he does one with Rolling Stone, I think it would be interesting to see what he has to say about a lot of different things.
Yeah. Two other questions rolled in here that I wanted to kind of ask you about. Max has said that the fan base is bigger in Europe than the U.S. I don't know about bigger, but any thoughts on difference between U.S. and European crowds, fans?
You European crowds are surely into him, but you got to remember they don't get to see him that often. You know, there are two shows and there are three shows, and that's it. They don't get to see him until he tours again. Whereas in the United States, you get to see him different things from there, and they are rabid. I've seen Bruce in Paris, England, and Italy, and I saw him in Milan in 2012, and I enjoyed more watching the crowd than the show itself. It was like it just couldn't believe how rabid they were for Bruce. And I haven't been to Barcelona, but I hear the same thing. Hear a lot of the same things that people just go nuts. Yeah.
I've got two good friends that saw the two Barcelona shows, and they went to Dublin on this tour, and they said, and they've seen, I don't know, whatever, 30 shows. They said the Barcelona crowd by far was like the most intense, like from start to finish, that they've ever experienced at a Bruce show.
Mm. Hey, just noticed that picture above your head is from Danny Clinch's gallery. It's
Yeah, I got several. I got Danny. I got Bruce with Steve Earle at the fundraiser that Steve does every year, and I got Leon Bridges over there
Leon.
from. Yeah. For anybody that hasn't been there, I highly suggest you go to Danny's.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got tons of stuff, not just Bruce stuff, but just all kinds of artists. He's a world class, obviously photographer. But Tina there that runs it, she's so nice and unbelievable. She'll take care of you.
Go in. You can take all the pictures. They usually will give you a souvenir postcard, and they have the Bruce selfie spot, and they're as nice as can be. Courtney, Tina, Zach, they welcome Bruce fans in there. They're always excited to have you walk in. So I always tell people, no, it's not like a New York gallery. Don't be intimidated. They're very in there. They're very, very.
My favorite story about Danny is, on top of it, well, my favorite picture of Bruce that Danny's done, I think, is the cover of Letter to You when he's standing and hearing Danny tell the story about Bruce just walked up with his coat on and the buggies were parked over there, and it was just like it just kind of magically happened, and he just got phenomenal pictures. My favorite story about Danny is I don't think it was at the current gallery, it was somewhere else there on the boardwalk area, but he had a showing of Bruce's stuff, and Danny kept getting after Bruce, like, hey, you want to come down? You want to check it out before I pack it up? The very last day, he packs it up and calls Bruce. He's like, hey, man, I'm packing it up right now. If you want to see it, you got to come. So he comes up. Well, Danny's dad was there. His dad was a painter, drywaller, I can't remember, but he's like spackling the holes in the walls and stuff. And Bruce pulls up in his one of the nice old cars, and Danny's dad's talking to Bruce about the car, and Bruce is like, "Oh, come on, you can drive it around the boardwalk." And he's like, "No, no, no, I don't want to touch it." And next thing he knows, Danny looks out the window, and his dad and Bruce are going off in the car. He's like, "Wait a minute, I want to go for a ride with you guys."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I met Danny a few times. He's just so down to earth and such a nice guy and very welcoming. So anyway, if you're ever down in Asbury, go to the Clinch Gallery.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple non-Bruce questions for you, if you don't mind, unless you got somewhere to be.
I'm just sitting quietly tonight. Don't have to write about funerals till tomorrow.
That's good.
I got to pick a cemetery of the year.
Cemetery of the year. Yeah. Wow.
ACE Award, American Cemetery Excellence Award. So that's what I got. Yes.
What besides Bruce? I mean, you've seen Bruce quite a few times, obviously. Other artists that you've seen that you think, and here's where I'm kind of going with this. I'm kind of asking you a leading question. I've had this conversation with several people, and I think about, is Bruce the best live entertainer of all time? In my opinion, like I'm thinking about, I'm a huge Elvis Presley fan. You know, Elvis, James Brown, those guys would come out and burn the house down but they only played for an hour. Here's Bruce writing his own stuff. He's playing guitar. he's singing, he's interacting with the crowd. It's like, I don't know anybody else at that magnitude that does all the things that he does. Of all the artists that you've seen, over the course of your life, any other entertainers rank up there with Bruce for you?
No, Bruce is by far the best live show out there. It still is, as far as I'm concerned. Um, I see Pink. I'm not a Pink fan, but I see her doing these incredible acts spinning around through a stadium. I'm like, wow. And apparently Taylor Swift, the clips I saw, just incredible. To see a crowd react like that to her, all these girls singing along to her. But now, as far as what I've seen, Brew, U2 is up there. I remember someone said to me in the 1980s, they said, you got to see U2. They're the closest thing to Bruce. Bono's the closest thing to Bruce. So, and I remember the first time I saw him was like 1987, and I thought so there. But, I enjoy all different kinds of shows. I saw Tony Bennett a lot. I saw Sinatra, and wish I saw Elvis. But you're right. The shows were an hour and 10 minutes or so. That was it. Yeah.
Wow. So you saw, I didn't think about, you're the first person to bring up Frank. So you saw Frank a few times, huh?
Yeah, I saw Frank probably 8 different times. Atlantic City, up here, our Garden State Art Center, he played. And saw him on his 75th birthday, which was at the Meadowlands. And I always liked the singers, Tony Bennett, even people like Jerry Vale and, different one, Paul Anka. My music's all over the place. If you saw my Spotify playlist, it's funny. And like, I'll be the first to admit, they had this big festival here in Asbury Park. The Foo Fighters were the headliners. I couldn't name you one Foo Fighters song. I know they're great. I know Dave Grohl. I know they're fantastic, but I don't know one Foo Fighters song. And maybe that's me. I should have expand my music a little bit. And I know the Killers, they were the headliners Saturday. I know them a little bit because Bruce did a song with them and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know a lot of different acts. So maybe I need to expand my my musical taste a bit.
No, I mean you've obviously been to a lot of different. Man, I would have loved to have seen Frank Sinatra or Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Yetta last night. We were talking about bands that she likes, and she brought up Foo Fighters, and I was thinking about Bruce, and it's like, all these other artists like Taylor and Grohl and other people, they look up to Bruce now, just like Bruce looked up to Elvis and Bob and James Brown, all this stuff. And you can tell, like, they're playing 3 hours, they're playing 3.5 hours, and I don't think they would have done that if
Yeah.
Bruce hadn't been. They know that he set the bar so high that they're trying to get up to those levels. So it's great to see younger generations of artists kind of trying to live up to that.
Right.
Okay, so here's a question, a two-part question I'll end with. If there's any act that you could go see other than Bruce, that's still performing now that maybe you haven't seen or you'd like to see, can you think of anybody that you'd maybe like to go see?
That's still performing now. Carole King. I'd
Mm,
like to see Carole King. I've never seen Carole King. He's
phenomenal songwriter.
yeah, just incredible. And I just want to mention one band. People may laugh at this, but one band I saw when I was 14 with my parents. I saw the Carpenters. And I think Karen Carpenter has the greatest singing voice ever to this day. And I think, people used to make fun of them, they were too poppy. But I think now their songs it's tremendous. And if you hear a Karen Carpenter song on the radio or a Carpenter song, just listen to that voice. It's incredible. I'm glad I did get to see her. She died at 32. So, yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you listen to her and it's like, yeah, there's brother and
Yeah.
sister, and they're so cheesy and the clothes, but you listen to her voice like Anne Murray, like she's just so smooth
Yeah.
and forceful and just phenomenal singer. The second part of this is of anybody that you haven't or could never see because they passed on, or you just didn't see them before they passed on, or they were dead before you, were in that age bracket. Anybody that's gone that you'd like to go back and see if you could?
Sammy Davis Jr. I never saw Sammy. Saw Sinatra, like I said, Tony Bennett. I never did see Sammy. And Elvis, obviously, too. I've listened to a lot of Elvis, and, his Vegas period, he was, toward the end, it was difficult to watch. But, he did 670 shows in Vegas. And when I first saw that number, I thought it was a typo. And that was in like a 8-year period, a 7-year period or so.
Yeah.
Sometimes he did 3 shows a night. And if you saw the Elvis movie with Tom Hanks there, they do get into that a bit. But as we said though, his shows were an hour and 5 minutes long. But just the Elvis of the 70, 71, 72, even the Aloha special. What was that? 72. Just
73. Yeah.
yeah. Just so Elvis, Sammy Davis Jr. It's probably some Jimi Hendrix would have been something to see. Yeah.
Yeah, Elvis did because he didn't start, once he got through the movies, which were god awful. I was watching something
Yes.
last year. TCM always does this week long thing leading up to, the day he died, and just awful stuff. I'm sitting there thinking, like, I just despise Colonel Parker. I mean, just
Yeah.
for so many reasons. But he's making these terrible movies, and this is during the time that the Beatles and the Stones, and I'm like, you got this guy that used to be, at the very top, and he's doing his terrible schlocky movies, and these guys are out there making the best albums of rock and roll history, and it's just the dichotomy just
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Yeah.
But he played for the time he came back from '69 to when he passed, August of '77. He did 1,200 shows in 8 years. It's just the amount of work that he put in. It's no
Yeah.
wonder. The amazing thing is he lasted as long as
Yeah.
he did, working with the problems that he had.
Yeah. Viva Las Vegas is a decent movie, though.
It is.
The one
There's
I think that,
out of the 31 movies he made, Hollywood movies, there's 5 or 6 in there that are
yeah.
in Jailhouse Rock and Viva Las Vegas, Anne Margaret, and that's the thing about Anne Margaret, like him and Anne had a thing, and
Oh yeah.
they were like they were their soul partners, but she was married, he was married, like all that stuff, but like she was one of the first ones to come to the house at Graceland after he
Yeah.
passed, and like she had a private moment. You could tell that she like deeply loved him. Um, yeah, Sammy Davis, that'd be awesome. I've seen stuff that he did on stage and like
Yeah.
his voice and just the dancing. I mean, he was so
Yeah.
multi-talented. It was
Yeah.
unreal. Um, all right. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time. Is there anything else, Bruce related that you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked you
No,
about?
just I'm hoping, like I said, I hope he's okay. It's a little concerning for all of us to what's going on, and just um, like I said, I don't know anything, so I don't want it. But I just want to see when November comes around that these Canada dates do go, and if they don't, I think we all should be a little concerned then from there. So, but hopefully, people are seeing him in Canada. Everything's great, and but they obviously knew he took off what's going to be 2 full months. So they knew, or he knew, or told them like, I need a break here. So hopefully we'll be back, and we're all getting older too. I shouldn't say this as a downer, but I have a picture from a show in 2016 of me and 2 friends, and I'm the only one still alive from that photo now. So it's really, as Bruce, the whole theme of this tour is, last man standing, and I'll see you in my dreams. That live for today, appreciate every day for today, and that's how I feel now too.
A couple of things. I mean, back in '16 on the River Tour, right in a row, David Bowie and Prince and Glenn Fry, like the guy's 70. Yes, we're allowed, like you said, we're allowed to criticize. We're fans. We're paying the money. We can say whatever we want. But in the end, we all appreciate greatly what he does for us. And the guy's 73. He's going to be 74. And for him to be at his age and still doing what he does, I mean, we take it, not that we take it for granted, but we've been so spoiled. That's what I'll say. Like, we've been so spoiled for decades, with the 4-hour shows and the energy and the breaking up of the set list, and it is what it is at this point in time. But that does not mean it's not a phenomenal show, and he's given us everything that he's got every time he steps on that stage. There's no question about it.
And Ryan, I expect you to be at all those Canada shows so you can watch in my pajamas and watch and wait for anything Bruce might say about if he's back, and so I expect you there.
Maybe I was considering Phoenix. I was considering, but I think Montreal or Toronto might be up my sleeve. Maybe I got to think about it.
All right. So, but I just want to say thank you again for the live streams. It's much appreciated. I think my hand gets tired holding a phone for 5 minutes, so I appreciate what you do, and it's wonderful. I think all of us, you see the numbers. It's sometimes up to 600-700 people, and it's fun too. It's a community event. We're all commenting on things and everything, and it's a lot of fun. And then you get the trolls, ignore the trolls.
Ignore them. This whole thing has just been a total ride for me, the ride of the lifetime. Like I never, it's a total fluke. But anyway, just the thing that the impressive thing for me is not that I'm nothing about me, but the fact that there's this community of people that follow the streams and they comment and real friendships. And I've two of my best friends that I have right now are people that I met through streams that I wouldn't have known without it. And like, that's what Bruce is about.
Yeah.
Bruce is about building the community through the music and, but outside of the music, it's like you have to have that community and friendships that you wouldn't have. And the fact that he does it for us, I mean, of all the artists that I follow, and I haven't seen anybody as much as I've seen Bruce, but like, there's just no community like there is with among Bruce Springsteen fans, in my opinion, of the bands that I've been around.
Are you Ryan? That had to make you feel good. Yeah, little celebrity there. But
Well,
some streamers have even brought us into the men's room with them.
the streamers are streaming while we're listening.
Yes, it brought us right to the men's room. Said, okay, here we go. But it's interesting. I think we all love it. We all appreciate it. That's for sure. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. And I hope to see you doing it again. I really do.
You're very welcome. And I appreciate, again, the tour, phenomenal, just great stuff. And for those of you out there, it's highly recommended. It's worth every penny that you pay to do it. And Stan is a great guy. And Gene is very knowledgeable. So when you do, when you do your private tours, is it just you or Gene there as well?
If it's usually Jean will come along if she can. Sometimes she does them on her own herself too.
Okay.
So if it's 4 people, I usually don't like to cram it too tight. But if it's usually 3 people or 2 people and Jean's available, she'll come along with me and do the tour. So depends on our schedule. Sometimes she'll do tours during the week when I can. I'm mostly a weekends guy. And she, matter of fact, while we're doing this, I had a message pop up. Somebody asked me about a tour. So, but, sometimes she can't do them, but we try. And sometimes it just doesn't fit into our schedules. We feel bad, but like I said, I enjoy doing it. I like meeting the fans. No matter how many times I've shown the same thing over and over, I get a kick when I see the people so excited, taking pictures there and everything else, and 10th and E, and just, that makes me happy. So I have always said I've never, ever wanted to be like, and on your left is Bruce's second childhood home. He lived here from 6, or I'm just going through the motions. It's like, if I ever do that, I'm going to stop. I enjoy the thrill of it every time because I know it's somebody new. And I always like on my bus tours when people take the tour again. Some people have done it 3, 4 times. It's like, wow, thank you. I appreciate
Like going to a Bruce show. Like you never know what you're going to find out.
That's right. So
that was one thing I noticed specifically that you not that I was paying attention, but I was like, man, he's done these tours so many times. It's like, but you still act like it's your first time doing it. So it was just great. The other thing I'll say, Stan, is as a you've been writing about Bruce and talking Bruce for decades now. And when I first became a serious hardcore fan, I was reading stuff. I kept running across your name from time to time, and anything I'd read some of your stuff. And whether it's a set list that you're doing now on Spring Nuts or your own page or other pieces that you're writing, like don't ever think that we're not out here listening and reading and paying attention. So don't ever think that your work is going to waste. We appreciate what you do as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Just like you, the feedback makes you feel good when you see all those people. I think you even go back and sometimes watch it over again, don't you? Yeah. See all the comments?
Yeah. I'll go through it and scroll through the comments. Yeah. I don't want to hear my own singing, but I'll go through and scroll because I'm missing so much of the stuff that's coming through during the show because I'm trying to pay attention to the show and the phone and everything else. But yeah, I'll go through there and seeing all the comments and your stuff. So, Stan, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and do this. And really, I appreciate what you do and hope you well. And we hope to see Bruce back on the road at the end of the year.
Thank you, Ryan. I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much. Thank you for having a lot of fun.
Have a good night.
All right.
Talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.